Hello humanoids, welcome to Halfling Hobbies. I'm Halfling Hannah, and today we're going to talk about something absolutely necessary if you're homebrewing or if you're running a pre-written adventure, and that is how to build villages and cities. Now, one thing that they don't tell you when you start off running something like Lost Mines of Fendelver is that you still have to do a lot of improv as a DM. This is one of the questions actually that was posed on my Patreon-only Discord. One of our new DMs said, if you're running a pre-written adventure, do you really have to improv all that much? And the resounding answer from all of the veteran DMs on that Discord was absolutely yes. There are so many things that you have to improv that you don't think of. One of them being entire villages. So even if you are running an adventure that happens in a pre-written world, such as Eberron, my one and only true love, then you are still going to have to come up with all those random little villages that are sprinkled around those major cities. And even when they do give you the towns and the cities, they don't give you what's in them or what they're supposed to feel like, look like, or what's supposed to happen in them. So there's a ton of improv that happens around this idea and this concept of towns, villages, and cities. And today we're gonna put on a course, Creating Cities 101 course. Now, if you want the master course to this, that's going to be on my website, halflinghobbies.com. You just have to search for villages, or you can go to the description down below and hit the link. However, we're going to go over a quick overview of how to create really cool, unique, and interesting cities, towns, and villages. Here we go. Before we get started, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I am almost to 1,000 subscribers and so excited about it. We are actually having a 1,000 sub special coming up soon, so make sure that you do that. Also, I just want to give a shout out to my patrons. Thank you guys so much for supporting Halfling Hobbies and believing in what we do. We really, really appreciate you. All right, let's get into this. How to Build Towns and Cities 101. Now, like I said, this is just a basic overview. You want the deep dive? Go to the website. But here are the 5 questions that you need to ask when you are building a town, city, or village. Number 1 is, where is it located? Now, this is a simple question, right? This village is located wherever my players happen to be. However, you need to be a bit more strategic than that. You see, towns, villages, and cities don't just spring up because somebody decides this will be a good place to put a building. No, they spring up around resources, most often around rivers. Even in today, in the real world, you see major cities around sources of water. This is because water provides, drinking water, first of all, it provides food, second of all, and third, it provides an easy source of transportation. So your first cities that are established are going to be near major water sources. So you're going to put big cities next to really good ports in your areas and north and south along major rivers. Next source of water is lakes. Usually giant cities don't spring up around lakes. These are going to be your towns. These are going to be fishing villages, things of that nature. So look for your water resources and dot your villages, your cities, and your towns along those. Next, other resources. So water isn't the only resource that's important. Wood and lumber, also very important. So if you have any major forests, you're gonna put some towns and villages sprinkled around there, as well as resources such as gold or gems. So decide in your brain where you think good places to put resources will be, and that's where you're gonna put your towns and villages. This makes it a whole lot easier as opposed to just throwing a dart on a map and saying, yep, there's one there. It makes it way more realistic when you're creating towns and villages to do it in this way. Question number 2, how long has it been there? So you're looking at time frames in this. So you want a nice spread of different lengths that villages and cities have been in a place. If you're looking for a quick reference, again, it's on the website, but here's the general breakdown for you. Ancient. Ancient means that it has been there for over 3,000 years. Now, obviously, these are super rare, but even in the real world, we have cities that are over 3,000 years old. So there should be some in your world, but there should be a specific reason why they've lasted that long. It needs to be either a holy site, it needs to be a source of magic, or protected by the gods. Something should make it very, very special. Now, major cities can be that old, but also villages can be that old as well, such as a sacred place or a sacred village at the base of a mountain that very few people ever find, but has been there for thousands and thousands of years. Your next age group that you're looking at is old, which this is going to be 2,000 to 1,000 years. So this is a very well-established city, town, or village. They have been there long enough to have well-known shops and resources, maybe even colleges or academics of some kind that have been there for a very long time. This is definitely an established place, but they're not as rare. You can have more of these sprinkled throughout your world, as it's more likely that towns and cities of this size were likely to survive for that long. Next up, you have up and coming. And again, these are my classifications, but up and coming is something that's been there for about a century or so. Now, this is where you're going to see major growth. Think New York City in the 1800s. Major growth. So you're going to see new buildings going up, you're going to see new shops, you're going to see a major influx of people coming to the city to find work, which lends itself to some problems and some interesting scenarios as well. But this is going to be your up and coming place. This is the place to be. It's finally old enough to have some of those major academic resources or shop resources that are beginning to become well known, that have been there for, hundreds of years at that point. And it's going to be a respectable place. This is going to be where a lot of action is happening, and this is going to be a really interesting setting for your campaign or a session. Now, a young city, this is going to be 100 years or less. This has some specific problems associated with it, as it is young in its establishment. So they're still getting their footing. They don't have a lot of super old established places, though they are trying. Perhaps there's a new college that has just set up that is trying to show that it is just as good as some of those other colleges. Or you've got some potion shops that have been there for a few decades and are starting to get some ground, though they don't have the clout as some that have been around for centuries. This is a city who is almost there. They're almost on the verge of tipping over to become up and coming, but they're still lesser known. They don't have a major influx of people. They don't have major building products going on, though there'll definitely always be something new being added to this place because it is so young. And then finally, my youngest category for villages and cities is new or temporary. Now, a temporary city could be a refugee city. It could be a moving or transitory. So this is like turtles. Turtles actually have moving cities, right? Because they carry the home on the back. So you can actually have transitory and moving cities. Wagons even that people literally pick up and move, and the city depends just on the location that they're at. So these can also be shanties. So if there's refugees that have to flee somewhere, if you're an Eberron sire, right? New sire would fit this category as a temporary city. There's a lot of problems with these kinds of cities, and you need to be aware if you're creating a new or temporary city that there's going to be a lot of problems there. Interesting and fun problems, but problems nonetheless. So why does this matter? Why does the age of the city matter? Well, it actually matters quite a bit, because the age of the city is going to determine what's there, what resources are available or aren't available, how the citizens of that city feel about the city and about newcomers to that place, and also the general feel that the city has. An ancient city is going to feel different than an up and coming city. Right? You're going to have a certain level of respect, and there's going to be a certain level of pride with an ancient city that you're not going to get in an up-and-coming city where it's going to be all lights and flash and all that jazz. So what you have is that the age of the city really kind of tells you the flavor and the feel of the city when your players go into it. Are there going to be giant monuments and leftover ruins from thousands of years ago? Or is there going to be nothing but new construction and new inventions and things popping up all around? This is the difference between an age of a city. Question number 3 that you need to ask is, who built it? Who built your city? Who was the primary, essentially, race that built this city? Now, this does matter because they each have kind of their distinctive feel and flavor. So a goblin city is going to be vastly different than an elven city, right? A dwarven city is going to rely more on stones and metals than perhaps even a human city or a gnomish city. So you need to pick the primary race. Now, that's not saying that they're the only one. Of course not. It's a city. There's a huge variety of people there, which is why we love them. But there's always kind of this primary driven goal for a city as far as the architecture goes. Now, this will help you a lot when you are trying to decide how to describe it and what the layout of a city would be. While a goblin city will be extremely chaotic and mazy and complicated, you better believe a human city is going to be far more organized, right? So pick which race created this city and then say, okay, what does that race care about? What is their primary goals? What is their purpose for creating? While elves' purpose is longevity, right? They're there a long time. They want everything to be beautiful because they're going to be looking at it for a long time. So their very structure of their buildings is artwork, versus humans who have one of the shortest lifespans, or dragonborns who have some of the shortest lifespans of the races in D&D. They're going to be far more interested in building quickly and getting things up quickly, right? There's a difference in the mentality of the races that are building the cities. So if you think through that when you're putting them in your world, you'll have a lot more to say when your players walk into that city. Number 4 is, how big is it? So I had a really hard time with this concept when I first started DMing because I'm from a small town personally. I live in like a medium-sized city now of like 50, 60,000. So the concept of like how many people were in a city or a town or a village was very difficult for me to grasp. So here are some hard and fast lines that you can kind of draw in the sand to figure this out. To be classified as a city in D&D, you are looking at between 12,000 to 25,000 people in that city. Now, of course, you can have mega cities or ultra cities that have way more than that, but a city, something that's going to have all the resources that your players could possibly want, that's going to be around 12 to 25,000. Below that, you have a large town, and a large town often has a population of between 2 to 12,000. Under that is a small town. You're looking at 900 to 2,000. Next is a village. This is 400 to 900. Then you go down to a hamlet, which I didn't know was a thing other than Shakespeare, but hamlet is 80 to 400, and then finally a thwarp. A thwarp is 20 to 80 people. Okay, so that's the general breakdown that we have of the sizes. Now, what does that mean for your campaign? Let's go from the bottom up this time. In a thwarp, the people are going to be looking at your party coming through going, why are you here? This is going to be a very small, tight-knit community that doesn't get a lot of outsiders or strangers. There's not going to be an inn here. There's not going to be any kind of business. This is just going to be people trying to survive, usually on the outskirts of civilization. You're not going to find anything here. As a matter of fact, it might even be hard to convince somebody to let you stay the night in their house. So your party's probably going to want to just keep on moving. A hamlet. So it is really unlikely still that there will be an inn or a bakery or a blacksmith or anything like that in a hamlet. What you're going to have is individuals who have kind of learned these practices from their parents over, the generations. And so you have individuals like Edith, who bakes fresh bread and barters with the other people in the community for what she needs. And then you've got the farmer who has the eggs, right? You've got these individual people, not businesses. Now, a hamlet's probably more likely to let your players stay the night at the elder's house than someone at a thorp would be. They're a little more used to people coming through. This will be in a little bit more trafficked area. Maybe this is even there's been the discovery of a new resource, and so these people have moved there to kind of start mining that resource, and a little hamlet has sprung up. But they're nowhere near being resource rich. There's not an inn here. There's not a shop or anything like that. The next stage is a village. Now, this is where you're starting to see some things that your players might find interesting. They'll probably have one inn in a village, and it'll probably be a little expensive because there's no competition. But you might have a blacksmith. He's not going to know how to make swords or anything like that, but he'll be able to put a shoe on your horse if you need him to. You'll find a bakery, things like that. So this is small town feel. You've got some businesses, but they are small town businesses. Everybody knows everybody. You are definitely going to stick out like a sore thumb in a village. Guaranteed. They will know who is a stranger in that village. Next up is a small town. This is where you're getting to the point where you're not as noticeable when you roll into town. You've got a few inns. You've got a few businesses. You might have a blacksmith who can do something adventure-y. And if it's positioned in the right place where there's a lot of traveling going through, then you might have an adventuring shop. You will not have a magical shop, though, unless you're in Eberron and then everything's magical. But generally, for the fantasy feel, you won't have a magical shop yet. But you do have a few more options, which is super fun. A large town is where you're starting to get where your players probably want to be. You've got several choices for inns, you've got taverns, you've got shops, you probably have one or two magical shops at this point, maybe a potion shop. You're getting a lot more resources, and then up from there, you have a city, which is anything your heart desires. You are a complete stranger here. Nobody's going to ask any questions about anything, and you can literally find whatever you want. That's the general breakdown for what you should have in from a thorp all the way up to a city. This is extremely, extremely helpful. At least I think it is. I wish I would have had somebody tell me this when I first started DMing, because I was putting potion shops everywhere. Like, this teeny tiny little village that didn't have an inn had a potion shop. Like, that's not how this should work. Those should only be found in the larger cities. Herbalists, sure, yeah. Local farmer who has a remedy that he swears by, sure, yeah. You can have those in villages. But they should not be readily available until you get to a large town or a city. And then number 5, what is your village or city known for? This is a great way to add unique flavor to each one of your towns, villages, cities, even thorps. Is what are you known for? Are you the salmon capital of the world? Are you known for the salt mines that your people mine? What is it that makes this place unique? What is the resource? Going back to the first one, what's the resource that your entire existence is built on? Now, cities can get away from this a little bit. They can have different areas of the city that are known for different things. But even at a large town level, you're going to have one resource that your town is kind of known for and that they're really proud of. Heck, do they have fish days where they're just celebrating this big festival of when the lake trout come and start a feeding frenzy, and you've got all these extra fish, and so they have a fish festival? It could happen. Weirder things have happened. Let me tell you, weirder things have happened. My hometown had clown days because we had a famous clown that was from our town, Emmett Kelly. And so we had Emmett Kelly days where they made us all dress up like clowns, and we had a clown parade, and it was a nightmare. I'm still scared of clowns. It's just an absolute nightmare. Anyway, what is this place known for? What is interesting about it? Play into that. Do you have a mayor who is all about their woven fabrics? Because that's what they do. They create the best woven fabrics, and they want everyone to know it. This is the kind of thing that's going to make each one of your towns and cities extremely unique. Now, if you need a resource to help you break this down and remember all of these steps, I've created one for you. You can find that in the link down below. Also, I've even created a DM binder page here that is all about magic shop inventories. So if you are having a hard time coming up with things that should be in a magic shop or this particular town or whatever, then you can print off a bunch of these, fill them out ahead of time, and then you have them on hand when you need them. There are lots and lots more things that we could talk about when we're talking about cities and villages. But this is the general 101. When you are building cities and villages, ask yourself these 5 questions, and I guarantee that you are going to create some really cool places. I would absolutely love to know, what is your favorite village or city that you made? What is the thing that they were known for that you just absolutely love the concept of? My good friend Joe Wiggins actually just created one where they're known for the Moon Festival, which is a celebration to the moon goddess, which is basically Woodstock in D&D, and I thought that it was such a cool concept and I loved it. So I would love to know, what have you got? What have you come up with? Help the community out, help other DMs out by giving us some really cool city and village ideas. And until next time, my friends, may your game have advantage. Halfling Hannah here, signing out.